Welcome to Models of Integrity, a new video documentary by Luke Sterra Leadership Foundation. I am Father George Ehusani, the Executive Director. We have produced this documentary, Nigeria, Models of Integrity, to showcase good, upright Nigerians who are struggling to live lives of integrity in the midst of what some people consider a rotten environment. An environment where every day we are bombarded with news of monumental corruption. Corruption at the lowest levels, corruption at the highest levels. Young people are today assaulted with scandals of their leaders or ex-leaders. Scandals relating to indiscipline, to corruption, to impunity. In that environment, we want to demonstrate that there are examples of virtue, there are examples of integrity, there are examples of people who have lived their life and have continued to live their life by principles, people of character, people who know that righteousness exalts a nation, but that sin is a reproach. We have many such people, from left to right, from north to south, from east to west, Igbos and Yorubas and Hausas and TV and Ishekiri and Ibira. We have good Nigerians, exemplary Nigerians, models of integrity, but they have not been well celebrated. They have not been given recognition. Luke Sterra Leadership Foundation has begun a series to showcase Nigerians that are struggling, that are working hard, not without sacrifice, not without persecution sometimes, to live by truth, by justice, by honesty, to work hard and only earn an honest living and touch no resource that is not their own, that they have not worked for. We have many such Nigerians. We want to be showing this to our young people in order to give our young people hope that all is not lost. Everyone is not rotten. We want to give our primary school young people, secondary school young people, our students in the universities, young graduates, let them know that all hope is not lost, that Nigeria can be redeemed, especially because we have these shining lights. We have these beacons of light in every profession, in every sector. Christians and Muslims who are using their Christian religion and their Muslim religion to live lives of integrity as nurses, as teachers, as administrators, as civil servants, as corporate executives. They are using the best moral principles of their Christian faith or Islamic faith to live lives of integrity, and we want our young people to emulate them. These are the people we call models of integrity. I am grateful to the MacArthur Foundation that supports the production and the free distribution of this documentary, and it is part of the projects that Luke Sterra has been running along with other people to promote integrity in our society. In the last few years, we have produced booklets like this, Christianity and the Challenge of Corruption in Nigeria. Christianity and the Challenge of Corruption in Nigeria, showing all the scriptural texts and commentaries where every act of corruption we practice in this country, everyone is abhorred and condemned. Also, we produced Islam and the Challenge of Corruption in Nigeria, showing texts from the Hadith, texts from the Quran, texts from Islamic scholars that condemn all acts of corruption. We even produced a curriculum and facilitators manual, a curriculum and facilitators guide to teach people how to use their religions to promote integrity and to fight corruption. Finally, we produced an integrity pledge, a pledge that everyone that comes for our courses, our training programs at Luke Sterra, takes this pledge at the end of the course in order to live lives of integrity, and we make them ambassadors of integrity. So, the Models of Integrity documentary that you're about to watch is just one amidst a whole gamut of programs to promote integrity in our society and teach people to take leadership role. May the Lord use this documentary and several other productions like this that are coming up to transform our society, to give hope to young people, to make our country a better place that all of us will love to leave behind a good legacy of justice and peace and integrity that we would like to leave for our children and children's children. God bless you.
He is a journalist, a writer, and social commentator, attributes that should earn him a good place in public life and probably open doors to a reasonable accumulation of wealth. But this Onitsha-born native of Anambra State in Nigeria's southeast makes haste to point out that vanity upon vanity, all is vanity. His first contact with philosophy that portrays him as a student of the biblical Ecclesiastes started when his parents, who put God first and worked hard to reap the fruits of divine guidance, introduced him quite early to a Christian livelihood. Welcome to the world of Obusom Anyegbunam, who is grateful for the early influence which the Catholic Church and some Pentecostal leaning has left on his life.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm really amazed anyway that you should enlist me among those you felt should be a model.
Anyegbunam, by virtue of regular behavior, has no identity without his humility. But positive character traits draw from a pool.
The first window of a child is the family, for whatever we want to say, and that's the first institution, the home. My father, up to his last days, was a very strict disciplinarian. Then my grandmother, who was the cradle actually. But within that setting, you may say it was a traditional setting, but the Catholic Church influence, which also rubbed into us from catechism, then we attend catechism, we follow the creed. Every other thing was around what? Probity and modesty, more or less.
We mentioned that Anyegbunam is a journalist. Here in Nigeria, there is a syndrome that many journalists are warned to steer clear of: the brown envelope. Anyegbunam encountered it several times, but his early Christian upbringing has always been there to help him fight a vice that has almost been pushed into the sphere of a normal occurrence.
Like attract like, that's what I would say. It takes two to tango. If within your disposition, I've been in solo force, I've been on my own, I have actually, one way or the other, seen the good and the bad sides of Nigerian experience and those who will call for money. And so, okay, we want you to do this. But all the same, having had this upbringing, and then what even in his dream, my late father would say, has to be rubbed on me. And not only that, I have also been able, in the context of my educational, I started from history, I have combined with political science, read law, then in the course of that, did works on journalism and the others, and continued up to that. The essence is this: when you reach a level, you will know what you want, and then this issue of let me say, we call it brown envelope. It's actually bribery in the context of it, because your conscience is at stake. White is white and red will be red. So if you compromise, tomorrow, we've had instances of those who took this money. Within 2 or 3 years, someone, even the person who gave you the money, will say what he gave. And then there is always integrity and there is always ethics in going into any profession. And at a point in time, if you stand, like I said, if you you have no wind blows in favor of a ship without a destination, if you have your ethics and professional conduct set to move and you are on it, then we know, we can't go to Djibouti for this, and so be it.
The forthright journalist, raised to respect the sanctity of life in line with divine laws, is not happy with the way things are going.
We have reached a level within our national context that a school proprietor will poison a 5-year-old innocent child with rat poison because of money. And we kept quiet. Within the next week, teenagers came up that they have killed because of rituals. And we have not bothered. Who are the parents and what happened within a school setting where a 5-year-old will be left without guidance?
Anyegbunam, who has a number of publications to help both the legislator and their constituents to understand the process of work by the second estate of the realm, advises selflessness in service to humanity, noting that he is himself a beneficiary of such a gesture.
Today we are all rushing about what? MacArthur Foundation, Ford Foundation, and the rest of them. I myself was the beneficiary of Freddie Sheba Foundation. So how many Nigerians or how many Africans who made those wealth have legacy of what? Foundations and thinking of tomorrow?
He says those who feel attracted to wealth are free to be that way, but that happiness for the individual goes beyond wealth on its own sake.
The basic is this. In African leadership contest, one man still stands out, Julius Nyerere, the teacher and the humanist. Irrespective of the fact that yes, he ruled Tanzania as a one-party state. But Nyerere has an example of a head of state who begged a bank to relax his mortgage to pay his students' school fees. An African head of state.
Taken up on the seeming triumph of evil over good in quite a number of discomfiting cases, Anyegbunam again had reason to refer to when priests and other persons in spiritual work largely influenced society for its own good.
When we had priests, if you go to every society, Nigerian civilization was driven by missionaries. Mary Celeste still has a place, and I don't think she ever spread money before any person. Mother Teresa is still what? An emblem, a global emblem of humanity. And they never did what? Displayed what? Wealth.
He has a piece of advice which requires those who have received faith injunctions from early life to continue to show the way to others.
If you are a Christian, you will know it is not what? Only by bread that you survive. And then within the Christian modern life of Christ in you, being Christ-like, then there will be modesty, and there will be what? Compassion, and there will be love, and then there will be consideration for the other person. You will be what? You are neighbor's keeper. So, and you now have the conscience, then there is accountability really in the Christendom. You don't do what? Overstretch whatever you have in your hand, because you see life as what? As a gift and opportunity from the Almighty.
Obusom Anyegbunam is still dedicated to living life in line with divine guidance garnered from teachings he took at catechism. That life, worthy of emulation, is noticed by others.
Emmanuel Anyegbunam has brought to bear in a modern day society the beautiful upbringing he had several years ago. I can tell you sincerely, Emmanuel Anyegbunam has character. He has integrity. His integrity is a collateral. You can take it to the bank.
Due to a combination of factors, Nigerians, more and more of them are losing that integrity, taste, and character. But there are a few that have shown consistency in displaying exceptional and extraordinary high level of integrity. Manuel Anyegunam is one of them. He has indeed demonstrated in times, good and bad, that virtue is one that perhaps is inherent and innate in him.
Anyegbunam is sworn to a noble and simple life, one that shuns greed. He got used to it from a youthful religious creed, which became solid faith. Power corrupts. But without going into the final point that absolute power corrupts absolutely, we can talk about the life of one of Nigeria's notable figures in jurisprudence. A man who, in spite of occupying a position of easy, though corrupt enrichment, chose to be guided by his faith convictions by remaining fair and just to those he had clear powers over.
I was born in Kaguru, Kaura local government of Kaduna State in 1949. The exact date and time is not recorded.
Calling this the story of Justice Pius Akas would amount to gross injustice to a life that would cover volumes in human compassion, professional integrity, self-restraint, and a conviction that man is at best nothing and must therefore look to the heavens for continuous guidance. After his study of law, Justice Akas opted to do the youth service first, and when he eventually graduated from law school, took up appointment as state counsel in the old North Central State. Justice Akas has quite a number of events that tested his resolve not to depart from his childhood introduction to godliness, but his resolve to stay on the side of probity as a member of a panel hearing election appeals easily comes to mind.
From January to August of 2004, I was in Port Harcourt, when again I was moved to Lagos because of an incident that took place. We had taken appeals emanating from the senatorial and House of Reps elections that took place in 2003, and so we took the appeals, but along the line there was conflict of interest because two of my colleagues felt we should give judgment to those who were appealing, and I said no, based on the facts. I can't see how we could give judgment to them. Of course, one of them said government was interested, and I said we don't have to give judgment based on what government wants, but it should be based on the facts and the law applicable. So it was because of that that I was moved to Lagos in August of 2004.
Moved to Lagos? Was he being punished for standing up for justice?
The movement, more or less, from Port Harcourt to Lagos was more to protect me because apparently some of the people that were interested were based in Port Harcourt. So it wasn't a punitive measure.
Well, that should elicit one big sigh of relief. Justice Akas lived to receive commendation for his stance in that election case. Standing up to two legal voices, a situation not made better by government's background interest in the case, according to his colleagues, must have been a near ordeal for a lone dissenting voice. But Justice Akas stayed true to his faith in God, which was acquired from early biblical injunctions on a virtuous life.
I was born into the Catholic Church, let me put it that way, because my uncle, although he never got baptized because he had two wives, were the people that brought Catholicism to Kagoro. Hitherto, all those that were going to Sunday churches had to trek from Kagoro to Kafanchan, which is a distance of about 7 miles. But they brought the Catholicism to Kagoro in 1949.
They trekked 7 miles.
Yes,
to church.
To church, of course. Yes. So I was born into Catholicism because I never went to any other church. Although the SIM now, EQUA, they were the first to come to Kagoro in 1927. So I would want to say we are either first or second generation Catholics.
Equa or Catholic, Justice Akas received the grace of having God implanted in him, so to speak, early in life. But let's not rush past the man Justice Akas owes a lot to for getting a good dose of God in childhood. The uncle he talked about.
Though he didn't go to school, he was quite enlightened. And he associated himself with those who had some education. So he appreciated the value of education. And I know on Sundays he will either carry me on his bicycle to church, or I will trek to church. This time around, it was not 7 miles again. It was maybe a mile or so. The other one in the south was at Ibadan.
Utterly intrigued by the man's sheer boldness on the bench, we dug up another instance of Justice Akas siding in with probity.
In the twilight of my career, I'm sure you would have either heard or read about the Osun governorship. And 2 of us gave dissenting judgments. Saying that the person who won the election was being schemed out of it by INEC. Why do I say this? There is this constitutional provision that says where a candidate wins 1/4 of the votes cast in 2/3 of the local governments constituting that state and has the highest number of votes, INEC has no option but to declare him the winner. But in that case, INEC decided to say that the election was inconclusive and went to organize a rerun in some polling areas, which is not the law. The law is, has the man won 1/4 of the votes? If the answer is yes, in 2/3 of the local governments constituting the state, the answer is yes. Did he have the highest number of votes cast? It is Yes. So, why declare the election inconclusive? Let whoever is challenging it, let him go to the tribunal and say, he ought not to have been declared because of so. Not for INEC to declare the results inconclusive.
Justice Akas repeated to us that his Catholic background helped him resist the influence the head of the election panel we mentioned earlier wanted to exert on him. He doesn't regret his rosary remaining a constant companion in those heady days. The sheer solemnity of Justice Akas's home has a pull you can't easily dismiss. Mrs. Akas joined us at a stage of our interaction with Justice Akas. There was a final question though, his advice to young practitioners on the bench on how to navigate the landmines of law and adjudication and retain one's conscience and sense of right.
Stick to your oath of allegiance and oath of office. And make sure that for every case that comes, be very conversant with the issues at stake. Make sure you have your facts and make sure you apply the right law. The law. Right? It's as simple as mathematics. People think, don't consider the personalities involved. Because if you are thinking of the personalities, then you are breaching the oath you have taken, that you will do right to all manner of people, without fear or favor, affection or ill will.
Asked about the character of Justice Pius Akas, Justice Luka Abba sent words that celebrated the life of a man of conscience.
I firmly, honestly, and truthfully endorse Justice Akas as somebody naturally born with an unblemished character and a very high sense of integrity, worthy of emulation. He is an embodiment of truth, humility, intelligence, and full of inbuilt mechanism of modeling and remodeling both individuals and the society at large. He is courageous and fearless in his dispensation of justice to all manner of people, irrespective of their status in the society. He is a pace setter and an achiever. In fact, he tenaciously cherishes and holds on to integrity as if that is his only purpose in life. He is a life changer and epitomizes what a gentleman should be. No wonder that in my valedictory speech at my retirement, I endorsed him as my first and principal mentor in my sojourn in this turbulent world of uncertainties. Justice of the Supreme Court, Pius Akas, is a light and a torchlight of generations yet to see the surface of this earth. His character is an example of God's creation of good people in this universe. May his life continue to shine for posterity, and may he be part of the success story, even in your organization and endeavors. Amen.
The comments of iconic solicitor and advocate Joseph Bodurin Daudu were equally edifying.
All I know that he is a man of the utmost integrity, that the Nigerian bench, that has adorned the Nigerian bench. He used his experience to guide, at times to be firm, to be stern, and to guide all of us through. But one thing we never heard about him was that his decisions were corrupted by some ulterior motives. Nobody till today, and as a matter of fact, has ever come to say, I gave Justice Akas money to do XYZ. That was unthinkable, it's unheard of.
Quiet, simple but resolved on the side of truth and honesty. Justice Akas remains thankful to Providence for letting him benefit from a good moral upbringing. Our interview session with Dr. Graham Kallio, native of Kallio Amma in Okrika local government area of Rivers State, Nigeria, was nothing short of positive infection. An unrepentant Christian, the man was down to earth almost harshly, refusing to be a religionist, but a humanist propelled by religious teaching.
Whatever I am today is due to the lessons I received as a young child, growing up under a father who was a disciplinarian.
That discipline was not cast in the shape of a father who insisted just because he had control over his son. There was a purpose to it all. He said the father ensured that he went to church and that the family could not for a second ignore the need to pray. It would seem Dr. Kallio was actually in some kind of spiritual ambush. The life he met at school was not too different from his domestic upbringing.
I also attended community primary school, Kallio, which was a mission school. And the teachers, they were very, very strict. They inculcated into us religious values that have become a scarce commodity today. You must greet. You must do your homework. You must be in the morning devotion. You must recite some of the scriptures. The discipline was so much. You must attend Sunday services or Sunday school because they take down names of those who refuse to attend. And then every Monday morning, during our devotion, they will just point at you, tell us what the catechist or the agent or the bishop taught yesterday. You quote the scripture, and then they will now ask you, what lessons do you draw from the preaching?
It would seem that young Graham had nowhere to hide from God, but it didn't stop at listening to religious instruction. One was required in Dr. Kallio's young days to practice what they heard in church or at Sunday school.
While you are in the church, you must be very, very attentive, and you must attend, and you must be there. Then apart from that, you don't just listen to all the preachings, what preachers have said, and so on and so forth. You must put it into practice. So we had very high moral values and standards that you must maintain. It's unheard of that you lied. Wow. That is an abomination. You lie to a teacher or to your parents. If you lie to your parents, they'll come and tell the teacher. So, just ordinary lie? No. They don't tolerate it at all. And it must be punctual. In the school, like in the morning, the school which I attended, primary school, you must go and clean the compound in the morning, do your own housework, then by 7 o'clock, you must be in this school where they line up everybody. If you don't come in time, if you come late, a minute late, you're in trouble.
It's an interesting side to the Spartan discipline they received.
At a point, we are all enjoying it. They made you to enjoy it, that there's dignity in service, that you serve, you are happy doing it. So that was my childhood experience. And that affected me. Like when I was doing my primary 6 examination, the final exams in 1970. Some of the people now said that, to write this exam, that we need to consult a juju priest so that, we shall pass very well. So I said, what? I said, no way. On a very few, I said, we cannot do it. In fact, from what we learned, from what they taught us and so on, juju priest or native doctor has nothing to do with us. In fact, it's an abomination. It's an aberration. You don't even talk about it. So those were the values that took us up to the secondary school. In the secondary school, the same discipline, because it was a mission school also, Okrika Grammar School. From 1971 to 1975, I was in Okrika Grammar School. Discipline. Wow. And every month there must be devotion. And you will not say that, you are late to devotion, you are this, or you cannot sing, or you cannot recite some of the Bible. No, not at all. And again, this idea of not lying and being honest was also there. So I was armed, I was fully loaded from my home with my father who loves God and who will make sure that you must pray and you cannot tell lies, to my primary school where the teachers were very strict. Those teachers that used to wear short knickers, they would not put biro in their stockings in those days. I mean, you dare not talk where they are talking. Or go out in the night, they see you in the night. Anything after 7, they see you outside. Wow, you are in trouble.
Many of those who were raised the Dr. Kallio way would smile on hearing these words. Those were the days. The pain then becomes the seeming absence of the situation that created character exhibited by the likes of him. Between 1979 and 1983, young Graham found himself in the University of Ilorin in pursuit of a first degree. He didn't jump at the freedom that came with it. Something still restrained him from worldliness.
All those values that I had from primary school to this thing, we are still in me. I couldn't drop them because they helped me a lot in my moral values. If I tell you that throughout my period of stay in university, I had no girlfriend, you never agree. In the university.
Really?
I started dating my wife in my final year.
Dr. Kallio told us that he learned to drop like a hot iron whatever did not add value to his life or had the potential of hurting another person. As he gradually wound up, vanity upon vanity, all is vanity, practically dropped from his lips.
All this we are amassing that is making Nigeria today to look to be, it's nothing. It's vanity. When the richer man will tell you that at the end of the day that is all vanity, and then you are now amassing things that you keep for your children. If you keep all for your children, what will they labor for again? They will not enjoy anything.
How would their life be?
How would their life? Yes. Because they don't know the value of labor, they don't know what is in, they will squander it. And at the end of the day, you become a fool.
The likes of Dr. Kallio do not completely escape the integrity trial as they journey through life. He got his portion, so to speak, at one of the places where he worked. An explosion which killed some persons happened, and he was asked to blame the fatal incident on staff under him. The rectitude inculcated in him by early religious instruction kicked in. He refused to do that. He paid a price for his stance.
Because, you see, in integrity, there's a price to be paid. Oh, you must pay a price. If you don't want to pay the price, just like some people will say that if you don't want to eat, don't go near the kitchen. There must be a price to be paid. I lost my promotion. I lost my treatment. He says, you want to treat me? Then he wanted to sack some of the staff. I said, no. No way. They did not cause anything. We know what caused the explosion. It's not the staff. It's not nothing. I saved them. I saved their jobs. I would have collected that money. I would have become a multi-billionaire. In fact, I had the day the explosion occurred, they were processing money, 1,000. And I was the only person who have access to it late in the night. I would have just, only one bag would give me 1 billion and I would have been okay. But I said no. The security man, I said, shh, quiet. But let me tell you, my dear brother, today I'm a happy man.
We turned our camera to Dr. Kallio's better half. Every word she uttered suggested she was happy with who her husband is.
He's a husband of my youth. He's a God-fearing man. He's a disciplinarian. He's a man of his words. He doesn't he doesn't pretend about issues. He says out his mind and facts as they are, no matter whose ox is God. He's very bold. And when it comes to standing for the truth, he sticks out his neck. He doesn't mind even if it will take his life. He stands for the truth at every point in time.
There was need to see the man through another set of eyes.
I've seen a quality in him. I know him as a peacemaker. I know him as a man that likes the society to be progressed. I know him as a man of substance, more encouraging to the public, a man that loves and caring, a true father in the house of God. You can do anything in confidence with him without fear and doubt. So I recommend him to any relationship with anybody, with any nation, with any community, with any friend, with even the society.
Train up a child the way he should go, and he would not depart from it in his adult years. Dr. Kallio remains a happy man, even though you wouldn't call him rich. Kano-born engineer Abdullahi Haruna is a Nigerian who from a wheelchair has become the reason soccer has come the way of persons who are living with challenges from spinal cord injury. This focused and conscientious Muslim started his education with Islamic studies. From there, he got into Western education, which led all the way to postgraduate studies. He attributes a lot of the good character he picked up to the insistence from a mother who would not compromise the right behavior as handed down by the Quran.
By the rules of the family. The rules of the family is you should not do anything that will bring shame to your family. You will not touch anybody's property. You should not take anybody's things. You should not disrespect elders or others. You should not involve yourself in any fight or misbehavior. This is how we grow up. The mother is always there and she is very firm about it. She will make sure that nobody derail from the track. And this is something that makes us to be really serious with our life.
As indicated, his mom was only being one of the avenues by which Quranic instruction got into young Abdul. The real source of his discipline was Islamia and Quranic school.
As my mom and at school, as we were taught, and there is a verse in the Quran that says, "Faman ya'amal miskara dharratin khairan yara, wa man ya'amal miskara dharratin sharran yara." Meaning that no matter how little, even if it is the tiniest thing, like an atom in science, they say is the most smallest article. So whatever you do, no matter how small it is, if it is a good deed, Allah will make sure that it is not excluded in your this thing on the day of judgment, on the day of reckoning. And no matter how small something bad is, even it is the tiniest thing, the smallest thing you can think of, that one too will be recorded. So this verse is telling us that don't think or overlook something that you say, oh, this is something little. You sort of like deceive somebody.
As a young person, a colleague at a shop wanted him to conceal the dropping of a 20 naira note by a customer so they could eventually keep it for themselves. His refusal to do evil earned him a slap and an allegation that he was actually the one who intended to keep the money. He was eventually vindicated.
The second Kaswa said, that man should apologize to me. He apologized to me because he confessed at last that yes, somehow what he did is wrong, but I'm right. So the second Kaswa was telling me that I'm a good boy, this is how it should be. They called my uncle and I told my uncle, and then my uncle was bitter with the boy that he say he has been suspecting that boy, taking money from him in the market or something like that. But now the truth has come out. So I will never forget this story, and I think it's something that really, really makes my day. And as I say, if you do good, good will come back to you. That very day, when I left the market or returning home, I was called that my friends have been coming to inform me that I have passed my primary school exams.
Later in life, when he needed to go for further studies, his boss told him he could be in school and only put in just a few days at work for a full month's salary. That was a tough call for the Abdullahi Haruna, raised by a God-fearing mother and tutored by strict faith instructors.
So I told him that this is my letter. I'm not collecting that money, and whoever collected is up to him. That is how I left that job. I left it. I don't know who has been collecting that money. And I don't even know up to date, I'm part of the ghost workers there or something like that. I don't know for sure, but it is just my conscience that is hurting me, that I'm going to school and then I'm collecting salary of job that I'm not doing. It's not good for me. I keep remembering that word that we were taught since we were a child. That is, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. The evil you did, no matter how small it is, will come after you, and the good you did will come after you too. So to be in a sepa and conscience free, that's how I just remove myself from that and face my studies. And Alhamdulillah, I did the right thing because I have a peaceful mind.
Haruna advises everyone to do good for its own sake and not expect rewards. These don't sound like words from a man with telling physical challenges. Engineer Haruna was involved in a road accident that led to the death of 3 persons, including his driver. Abdul's neck and back were broken. His life after that has, however, not been one of regrets. Rather, he has faced every day with a resolve to make it beneficial to others.
If he wants you dead, because some people died at that spot, but he left you alive. He left me alive, and I was alive for over 20 years now. And Alhamdulillah, every day when I'm going to bed, I will think, why am I still alive? It is not my power or the power of anybody, but it's the will of my creator. And I keep asking myself, for leaving me alive, there must be a reason.
Engineer Haruna gives a clear hint on what integrity is or should be.
And if you want something to be good, you have to be good yourself. So she keeps telling us, do good, and good will come back to you. If you do evil, you will see evil. And this is just like what the Quran says, that no matter what little thing you did, or no matter what little evil thing you did, it will surely, you will surely account for it. So this is very, very important in my life that makes me to be what I am to say. And you say it all started from where? From home. And from whom? From the mother. So in every situation, the mother is the pillar of the house, is the pillar of the family.
As leader of the Kano State branch of the Spinal Cord Injuries Association, Abdul Haruna has been a source of immense help to a group of persons who needed him to advise them on how to prosecute a TED Fund-sponsored program for rehabilitation of spinal cord injury victims.
Alaji always tries to stretch his arms in order to support other people. I can relate with an example of a lady in this association who needs some kind of equipment, for example, that she can use to go to school, attend classes, and that equipment is something which is relevant. And Alaji has a lot of connections and ways to make things work, and what he did was actually to provide her with a means by which she can actually afford that equipment, which will allow her to go back to school and take all the necessary classes in order to build her own career.
Haruna's wife, Aishatu, loans her voice to the uniqueness of her engineer husband's disciplined life.
My husband is a very loving and caring husband. Despite the challenge he has, he always cares for people and advises them in a good way to rise their way of living. And again, he always encourages me on all what I am doing, and he is my backbone that makes me to be what I am today. He advised me in a good manner, and I took the advice. We loved and cared for each other for almost 21 years now. We are, because we got married 2001, and he had us then at that same year. We were only 5 months when he had the accident. Until now, we are still together with each other happily, despite the challenge he has. Because I believe that with love, anything can happen. So, and what he has now is not his own will, it's Allah's will, and it can happen to anybody. So, we thank God, Alhamdulillah, the way we are. And he is my hero because he always advised me and gave me good advice on how to treat and mingle with people. So Alhamdulillah for him to be around me, and I wish and pray that may Almighty Allah leave us together till eternal.
If you want somebody who is a role model of a true humanity, he does not discriminate between persons, neither does he discriminate between color, religion or creed. I think I appreciate him for that.
Dr. Bello expresses profound shock that a man could be in Alhaji Abdullahi's physical state and still be such an unrelenting, godly man. But old habits are only dying hard, and the young Abdul, groomed, so to speak, in Islamia, has taken it all into full maturity. In her expansive office at the Nigerian Ministry of Transportation in Abuja, Mrs. Magdalene Ajani oozed executive radiance from well-made local attire. But our interview with her took us down memory lane that showed she had not always had it so good.
I sold bread and akamu on the street of Maiduguri, and in the mornings before going to school, and then in the afternoon after having a good meal in my mother's restaurant, you will do your homework. Mom will supervise you to do your homework. Then from that time till you close the shop and go home to sleep, you are going to be doing the job of serving people food in that canteen.
She is currently the permanent secretary of the ministry. From her birthplace in Agbo, in Nigeria's Delta State, to Maiduguri in the north, where she was brought up, Mrs. Ajani lived a life essentially shaped up by her grade 2 certificate level father, who got into the military for survival, as she put it. Need did not deter the search for God in the family.
No, you know, for the Catholics, you're even baptized as a baby. You're baptized as a baby. But what I clearly remember is that every Sunday we had to go to church with my father, and there is this baptism for Holy Communion, to receive Holy Communion. So as soon as you sort of know yourself, you can speak. Your parents want to make sure that you pray your rosary as many times as possible, participate in the family praying group and all that. So they start preparing you for the Holy Communion.
Well, the point is that Mrs. Ajani took that early Christian tutelage as a mantra for reinforcing attitude towards latter-day experiences. She captures the essence of bringing up a child in the ways of God.
The thing about religion is that once it's there, it's there.
They are not just there. She speaks about how religious instruction takes one into and through life.
So those were quite thrilling times for us in terms of religious achievement. They were very important in my family, and I think those things have guided my life.
One thing is to prepare an individual for life. Another is for such an individual to deploy the tools which they have acquired to make them relevant and effective. In the case of Mrs. Ajani, the instructions were perhaps scarily down to earth.
I remember my mom telling us over and over, don't let anybody touch your pants, it's your private part, don't let anybody take you to a corner and all that. You know, and as children growing up, you know, you see people doing things in school, you know, and you begin to tell yourself that, mom said this shouldn't happen, you know. So it's kept on like putting me on my guard.
Mrs. Ajani, who trained as a medical doctor specializing in ophthalmology, had her moral instruction in early life tried out as a hospital administrator. She supervised the supply of equipment and somebody tried to bribe her.
I remember somebody walking into my office at close of work, which was a bit unusual. And I called my secretary. I said, I'm sitting back to work quietly. Why will I be getting a visitor after 4 p.m.? And she said, well, he insisted he needed to see you and I couldn't stop him. And by the time I entered a conversation with the man, I realized he was a contractor who was meant to be supplying some equipment to our institution. And it was a huge supply of equipment, you know, to the institution. And here he is with a brown envelope offering me some money. And I'm like, have you done your supplies? Why are you coming with a brown envelope? And he said, you know, this is how things are done.
Having been raised to abhor sleaze, early instruction kicked in. She turned the man away. There is purpose in a bribery. She adds something to that experience.
If you're giving me something ahead of supplies, first you're trying to compromise me. And then in compromising me, I probably will not be able to speak up if that supply went wrong, you know. And I clearly just remember my dad saying to me, your name and your integrity is far more important than affluence. We probably heard that at least every week in my house.
We turned the cameras to get others' views about the Ajani persona.
I speak about my boss, Dr. Magdalene Ajani, a model, an integrity personified. I consider it a privilege to work with her. Okay, I am from the private sector where things are done differently with due respect to civil servants. It was almost like a case of no hope until I came across her. She works better than a man, equal to the task at all times, always ready. The nation needs her. She's a woman on assignment. She works as if she's working for God and not for man. I do not want anybody to preach gospel or whatever to me. Look at her, learn from her. Let's do it the right way. The country could be turned around again and again. With Dr. Magdalene Ajani, there's a future for Nigeria.
Two things stand out for me about her. One is she loves God. And so she's very conscious of her ways. She's somebody who has the desire to please God in anything that she's doing. And I think that is part of the reason why she's so committed and diligent in whatever she does, because just as the Bible has said, whatever we are doing, we should do as if God is our direct supervisor. So she works like God is her direct supervisor and not for a human master. And the other thing that stands out is her integrity. And I think that still has a bearing with her love for God and the desire to please God. I am aware of situations where, as a permanent secretary, beautiful carrots have been dangled in front of her to compromise in one way or the other. But she refused them because of her love for God and the desire to please God, and also her love for this country. Because, she believes that if projects are to be done for the sake of the country, by the time you compromise and collect bribes here and there, then you have no local standing to hold whoever responsible to do a proper job. And so, I know that she has held that up all through up to this point. And I pray that God will bless her and bless her children in Jesus' name.
Once again, here is Mrs. Ajani on a humble beginning.
Not only President Jonathan Goodluck that went to school without slippers. I went to Army Children's School, Maiduguri, with bare feet. With bare feet. I have the pictures. I used to talk to my kids about it. And they look at me and just feel, Mom, hey, that couldn't have happened. We're in a century where a child will even tell you, I don't want to wear canvas, I want to wear sandals to school and all that. They have options. I didn't have an option. And it was so amazing for me. One day I went back home to my parents' house and I saw my picture in my starched Army Children's School uniform with my bare feet and my friends. And I brought that picture home and I showed to my kids, and the four of them were weeping. Mom, we never believed you. Wow, this is you? Of course, they took a shot of it to keep it in their system. But I can tell you what that did to my kids. The idea of entitlement for a driver to take them out started changing.
Mrs. Ajani says her humble and godly life would always be rewarded. The director of Center for Gender Studies, Nasarawa State University, Kefi, Nigeria, Dr. Hawa Mohammed Mainoma, cuts the image of a plain and soft-spoken woman. And that's exactly what she is. She is grateful to have been exposed to Quranic injunctions quite early in life. It all came from guidance by grandparents who let her know that an ungodly life was not an option for a lady who meant to grow up well.
At the time I was growing up, I've been seeing my grandmom and granddad, the way they were more religious. Anytime it's time for prayer, they will say, oh yeah, go and pray. Leave all what you are doing, go and pray. That was what started ringing to my brain, that this thing is more important. And anything they are communicating, anytime they are communicating, they will tell you, fear God, fear Allah. If they ask you to come and testify something, they say, tell the truth, because God is seeing you. God is up, He's seeing you. I will now be turning around, where is the God? I will ask, but where is the God? She will say that God is there. Sometimes she will tell me, because she has been to the Mecca, she will tell me the God is there. So anytime, any precious thing she is asking, I say, where is this? She say, it is in Mecca. She bought this one in Mecca. I say, oh, if she asks her something, say, it's the mouth of the questioner. I say, oh, even the mouth of the questioner is in Mecca. She now laugh, because I thought Allah is there. Every Muslim he has the urge of going to Mecca. So anybody that goes to Mecca and come back, you will see him more reformed, more obedient, and more dedicated. So they used to tell me that anything I am doing, I should fear Allah. I know that God is more important than anything in life. They will tell you that He's the one that created you.
The grandparents succeeded in making her eschew inappropriate behavior by convincing her that the all-seeing and all-knowing God was forever watching her actions. As she grew up, a friend of her grandma's built further fear into her, just to make sure she was not put in the family way by unscrupulous men.
What she usually tells us is that we should not go near man. If a man wants to talk to us, let him be afar. When he come closer to us and touch our clothes, we are pregnant. We are pregnant. So if somebody is calling us to send us, then because there are our elder brothers that comes with their friends, they used to call us, oh yeah, come and buy something for me. Say, okay, throw the money there. I will come and pick the money. Then I will go for your errand. When I bring, I will now keep it there. She really instilled that until when we enter secondary school, about finishing, that was when we know that she had but it has already been part of us.
Dr. Mainoma says moments of trials come her way, but that due to her solid religious upbringing, she has cultivated internal control, so to speak, that guides her daily life.
All these things that is happening to other people is also happening to me. It's not that I've never had that experience of having been in trouble, having problems, and so on and so forth. But the most important thing is that I used to talk to myself to calm down first. When I calm down, then I will have to think about the causes of those things. Then I have to think of preventing it. This had happened. So what will I do in order to prevent the future of occurrence of such? Then I will now try to curtail it. When I curtail it, because problems come from any other angle, you can't even predict how it comes. But the first thing I will talk to myself is calm down. Think on how to manage the process.
Well, patience, according to Hajia Hawa, had been built into her through early tutelage about human existence. She readily recommends it to people who are contending with life's issues. But most of all, an early introduction to God is a matter that has no alternative.
This faith is very important, whether being Christian or Muslim, because that will make you to be your torchlight. It will be the one to be helping you to see the road. When you are not well built in religion, you will be in a mess. You need to be well built in religion, either Christian or Muslim, because that will mold you and shape you and put you in the right track.
Those who spoke to us about Dr. Hawa painted the picture of a virtuous woman who would not hesitate to lift others out of despair.
Associate Professor Hawa Menoma is a person that she operates an open door policy irrespective of your religion background, your regional backgrounds, and what have you. And she's a mother indeed, just like I've mentioned. Aside from teaching me during my undergraduate, I was also privileged to work under her. First of all, she don't know me, I don't know her, but I heard from the students saying that if you meet this so woman, she will assist you, whether she know you or she don't know you, whether you are a Christian or you are a Muslim. So I entered her office, I greeted her, she answered, I said, this is my problem. Immediately, without wasting our time, without wasting my time, she just wrote a memo and sent me to that office. So everything has finished.
Hajia Hawa ended up the interview with her by saying that what Islamia taught her and which she took into adult life is that God is everywhere, watching all her behavior. She said it makes her watch where she goes, whom she interacts with, and the kind of communication she engages in. Hajia Hannatu Akilu has found comfort in a life erected in godliness, which she took from Islamia long ago, but also one that is now propelled by a Spartan resolve to play down the intrusion of self as she communicates to humanity around her. The chairperson of the Federal Medical Teaching Hospital in Katsina, in Nigeria's northwest, was taught a hard lesson early in life by a purposely strict father. She has never forgotten the incident.
We need to retrain ourselves to bring up children that have respect, and we need to bring up, like my father said to me once, I've said this story many times, but I'll say it again. We had a fight with one of our Islamic teacher's son, who was, the Islamic teacher was living with us, but they were living in the boys' quarters. So we used to play together, and then one day we were playing in front of the house, and there was this big mango tree just in front of the house, and we had this fight, and I don't know what it was about, but we were on the tree, I remember that. But we had this fight, and I told him to go back to his own side of the house, that he couldn't stay on that side, that he should go to the back. So I sent him off, and my father was sitting in the living room, and the window was just overlooking the drive, and the tree was behind the drive. So he didn't say anything. So I came in through the front door, and he was sitting in the living room, and he called me, and I thought it was just one. So when it's not being when I'm not going to be told off, you know, I usually sit on the arm of the chair. So I didn't think he was, because he didn't have that mane on his face that he was going to tell me off. So I sat on the arm of his chair, and he asked me, he said to me that, is this your house? And he said to me that, look, I want you to know that this house belongs to me, and my achievement is my achievement, not yours. So if you want to show off, you should wait when you grow up and you're something, then you can show off with who you are. And that thing has stuck to me. So even when people, you know, try to say, oh, you know, she's so-so-his daughter, I'm always saying that, no. Allow people to know who I am.
because I want to be recognized for who I am. Yes, I'm proud of my father, but I also want to know that I have made my own input. So, you know, we need to bring children up with that kind of mentality.
It was a salvo from a realistic father, but Hannatu did not feel put down. Hajia Hannah, as her father called her, says after one picks up religious injunctions, anything that the individual does after that is a matter of choice.
So if you decide this is what I want to be, then you work towards being that person that you want to be. So that's what I'm saying, you know. So it's like you decide you want a university degree. So you have to go to college, and then you have to go to university, and you have to study and to attain that degree. So it's the same process, you know. If you decide that, okay, religion forbids you doing this, and you're in a situation where temptation is there. So you have to make that choice. What do I want to be? Do I want to go above, or do I want to be below? So if you decide that you want to go below, then you don't have to fight. You don't have anything to do, you know, you just let go. So there are no challenges. But if you decide, no, I'm going to go above this, then you have to work hard, which was what you did, and you rose above that. And you felt good about it because, so that feeling good is your degree.
True to her belief in early creed, an imam was on the premises to help the young start a life counseled by faith so that their adult years could be anchored in truth to self and gratitude to God. Hajia Hannatu insists that when an individual is raised in true worship, at a stage they can no longer separate self from the way of life which faith has inculcated in them.
We had to go to Islamia. It was just on the same street, and I remember we used to just walk there, and you know, it wasn't really any big deal. It was just something that was natural that you just had to do.
While she blames elderly persons for not showing good values, she is not happy that the child's character is no longer a product of community input.
Once upon a time, we used to have what was called, I'm ashamed to come out and do this thing. But now we don't have shame. You can just practically do whatever you want to do. There's no shame attached to anything, you know. You can just be, if you want to be an idiot, you can be an idiot. Everybody was responsible for bringing me up. So if our neighbors or my father's friend came and told me off, I wouldn't go and tell my dad and expect my dad to side me. In fact, I wouldn't even want my dad to know that I'd been scolded by his friend. And then if I went to school and I misbehaved and the teacher punished me, I wouldn't come back and tell at home that I was punished, because I knew that I would be punished again. You understand? Because the teacher had the responsibility of being a parent, which is all these values we've lost. So, you know, we bring up children with no responsibility, and then we bring up children with with a sense of entitlement because they are so-and-so's son or daughter.
And it is not as if Hajia Hannatu was born into a struggling family. Her circumstance of birth was reasonably impressive by strict social standards.
My father was a secretary to the premier, but I never knew how important he was till after he had died. And even then, I didn't know that that position was something that I could use till after maybe in my 20s.
Because you were not thinking like that.
Yeah, but no, I was not brought up to think like that. it's not that I wasn't thinking. I wasn't brought up to think like that. My parents never brought me up to think that my father's position or what we had in the house was something that was a feather that I could wear. It wasn't my feather, it was his feather.
One of her daughters did say to her one day that some individuals felt she, Hannatu, was not getting certain things because she was not bending to certain things. Hajia's response was swift.
I've made my own choice who I want to be and how I want to be. So it's left for you now to make your own decision. Do you want to have a mother who's a thief? Or do you want to have a mother who is not a thief?
Hajia Hannatu says anyone who makes an attempt to bribe her could well be punching a brick wall. It's not just that Islamia has predisposed her against such vice, it just doesn't add up to normal reasoning. Hajia Hannatu is not happy about the curve society seems to have spiraled into.
Where we've gone wrong is that we've brought up a whole generation or 2 generations actually, or 3 even. For me, it's about 3 generations now. Because I have my children, I have grandchildren, and I have great-grandchildren. So for me, it's 3 generations that we've brought up with this sense of entitlement, with this sense of irresponsibility. You know, they can just do anything and get away with it. And, you know, we brought them up not knowing who they are. They're neither Nigerians nor Africans. They're just there, you know.
Religious leader and co-chair of Women of Faith Peace Building Network, Hajia Mariam Dada Ibrahim, sent her summation of Hajia Hannatu's character.
Hajia Hannatu is a humble Muslim whose Islamia upbringing has taken her into an adult life of integrity. She shuns corruption like a plague and advises you that your life is largely dependent on your choices. She wants young persons to desist from a feeling of entitlement and work to become whatever they want to be. Hannatu is a great woman of integrity.
This woman of peculiar yet down-to-earth philosophy is appreciated by yet another individual. Hajia Hannatu's life has not too surprisingly left a lasting impression on her son, Sanusi Ibrahim.
And noble qualities of truthfulness, of trustworthiness, of kindness, of forbearance. It might interest you to know that Mama has been standing and speaking boldly and solidly for the exploited and downtrodden masses of Nigeria. These qualities are what every human being, every society would like to see being inculcated in the youth, particularly of today's generation.
When I asked how she responded to those who might consider her too insistent on a virtuous life, Hajia Hannatu said she just lets them be. Life to this woman of integrity is not necessarily a popularity contest. Still, she is happy that a group of young persons she mentored has gone from reluctance towards adopting her advice to treating her admonition as a gift towards prosperity family. She has become Mama to them all, eventually. Onyinye Ethelbert moves from one foot to the other supported by crutches. She had a spinal cord surgery which was not just dicey, but was also one that her father practically did not give his blessings to. The man attributed her issues to witchcraft from someone which only a spiritual solution could address. She had the operation all the same, and prospects of the young lady walking normally again are increasing, thanks to the unbelievable risk and commitment from engineer Chika Okwolisa. But jumping right into the compassion that is helping to return Onyinye to her 2 feet does not quite capture the act of integrity which her benefactor, Miss Okwolisa, is credited with. God was part of the daily life in Miss Okwolisa's family. It rubbed off on young Chika and her siblings.
It's my life. My father, for example, modeled integrity. He modeled Christianity. He modeled humility. He modeled honesty to the poor. Just like my mother. They were a very good example, okay? And as their children, none of us deviated so much from the values that they taught us.
So, early contact with godliness was established for Miss Okwolisa and her siblings. Many things did happen from Miss Okwolisa's Sunday school lessons. Compassion, however, remains her major takeaway from it all.
And the story from my Sunday school days that really molded how I see life is the story of the Good Samaritan. Is the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. That story is a life that I live. That story motivates and inspires the life that I live.
Miss Okwolisa happens to have picked up a few lessons from her father, which bring a fulfilling destination into whatever she takes up in life.
My dad will always tell you, it's not about how many cars, how much is in your bank account. It's about the impact. It's about what you do for others. So this category of people that invest their life, is about their purpose, ensuring that they get to know their purpose.
As one watches the clear hope and optimism on Onyinye's face, Miss Okwolisa's insistence on compassion really assumes a living form. But this engineer with a humanitarian inclination actually started it off a lot earlier in life when she told herself that a maid in their family, Uchenna, was going to get educated like herself. How did she get the money to make it happen?
During my break time or off time, I will enter the market, they call her, and I will go and sort with some good clothes, okerika, second-hand materials, and I will go back to my hostel, wash them, iron them. So many of my friends weren't aware of what I was doing, and I will repackage them and I will sell them.
Many years later, Onyinye would in abundant joy express gratitude for meeting the engineer in the journey through time, particularly against the background of Onyinye's parents insisting that her experience resulted from a spiritual attack, giving no room for alternative thinking in the matter.
I don't rule that out, but in the interim, let us go for a medical solution. And that was personally my prayer, and I didn't know how he did it for me. He came through for me through the intervention of his checker, and I am very, very grateful. From that time up until now, she has not given up on me.
Miss Okwolisa's early exposure to Christian teaching has helped her resist various instances of temptation to get immoral, so she could acquire certain things. Divine energy which sprouted from God's guidance has come in really handy. There's a second opinion on the Okwolisa personality.
I got to meet somebody who is God-fearing, who challenges all odds. She is a challenger, she's a fighter, and she's very compassionate. She is someone who would take her last dime to see that you achieve what she wants you to get.
Miss Okolisa continues her journey of compassion in staunch belief in purpose. He wears the attitude of a gentleman, like a second skin. When he speaks, his voice similarly carries the good deportment you associate with him on first contact.
Professor Andrew Zadunya Zamani. Bagistok from Cairo FCT.
Professor Andrew Zamani says his father was a Baptist minister whose calling was church planting and evangelism. Religious teachings were not forced on him, but rather he was taught in the best of liberal traditions. The most notable of his opening pronouncements was that the nature of what Christian precepts presented was too much of an attraction to ignore.
My father did not give me any other option, but he made Christianity very appealing to me. It was very appealing to me. It was something that brightened my life as a little kid. You know, he introduced me to church activities, and I look forward to church activities. And virtually, I played lead roles, not because I was a pastor's child, but because I was very highly motivated.
He is a lucky man. Early instruction was not just about God. They were groomed in speaking and sang in the choir and further taught the Sunday school. That luck we alluded to extended to cross-faith interaction for young Andrew. There was harmony.
If my mother did not have salt, she would send us to the next compound, to her Muslim friend, to beg for salt. And we would get it in abundance, and vice versa. We played in the evenings, we played football, we rode bicycles together. It was fun.
Professor Zamani could well be talking about a past era in Nigeria in terms of cross-faith interaction. He said he ran into a school friend, Rabiu, the other day. The Christian and Muslim pair were at dismay over the sad trend between Christians and Muslims in the present day. It wasn't how they grew up to behave. What particularly molded their character?
Upbringing matters. The Bible says, teach a child the way he should go. When he grows up, he will not depart from it.
However rich Professor Zamani's environment of growth was, present-day challenges to his integrity abound. How does he tackle them?
When critical moments come, when you have to make a choice, what rings in your mind? This is a human like me too. And you know, the biblical teaching or injunction tells us that man is made in the image of God. So for me, to denigrate a man, to cheat a man, to maltreat a man, tantamounts to offending God. So, if that is it, and I've been trained to honor God, then I would rather avoid that.
When we told him what material losses would attend his avowed commitment to integrity due to his upbringing, he told us the price he would pay if he went back on his moral and religious obligations.
I would be a happy person. You see, again, this is the point. I was raised to be a happy person, and I was taught the secret of happiness. All right? Growing up, I tried, of course, to deviate. And each time I deviated, I was unhappy. So the option is to get back on track so that I remain happy. I don't lose sleep over people who malhandle me, who cheat me, who backstab. I don't lose sleep over them. Yes, I get angry. Once in a while, I get angry. Many things upset me. But, I quickly remobilize. I gather myself, I pull myself together because I have the secret. The secret is in the spiritual training that I was given.
Professor Zamani is not happy about certain trends in the Christian faith. He says it has become like a vogue, a fashion.
Practice oratory. If you learn oratory somewhere, you can be a very great pastor, You don't need the Holy Spirit, do you? Because you can move people by your words and wits. This is what is happening right now.
Professor Zamani's Surgeon in the World attracts a few comments.
As a professor of psychology, whom Andrew Zamani is, I know how much he has been of influence to his students. Sometimes when I visit him in the office at Nasarawa State University, where he is the director currently of development and on development studies, he handles his students maturely. When we talk of integrity, there is no mixing of words on that. Students I have interacted with who are doing their PhD, master's degree, I have found out that some of them that have virtually given up previously on the academic pursuits, when they interact with Professor Andrew Zamani, the next thing you find within 5 minutes, that same student moves out smiling, jubilating.
Okay. Professor Andrew Zamani is first of all a father, an incredible father to be precise. He's someone who mentors everybody who is around him. He takes everybody as an important person, no matter what level you are in. He is someone who is courageous, determined, hardworking, and very focused. He is someone who extends a hand of kindness, a hand of friendship, a hand of love to whoever he meets. He is somebody whose faith challenges me and scares me at the same time, because when he does that, how do I put it? He's somebody who has the fear of God in him, someone who has the ear of God, such that when he prays, his prayers are usually answered. So it's very easy for me whenever I have a challenge to tell my dad that this is my problem, and once he prays for me, I'm very certain that God is going to answer it. Not because I don't know how to pray, but because I am very certain that God has the ear of my father.
Professor Prince Nweze practically saw Professor Zamani through his entire academic program. He sent these words about the clinical psychologist's personality.
I have known Professor Zamani since 1980, when he joined the Department of Psychology as an undergraduate student. When he finished his BSc, he decided to continue his master's program with me. At the end of the master's in 1985, under normal circumstances, he would have changed his supervisor. He insisted on undertaking the PhD with me. which he completed in 1993. This wonderful agreement made us to know each other very well. Andrew is a wonderful gentleman, sure of himself, so dedicated, a good listener, hardly gets annoyed with people, convinced of himself, accommodates the views of other people, but I still wonder if he ever gets annoyed. His students can tell better of Andrew in terms of student-staff relations. It's difficult to quantify Zamani's person.
Professor Zamani rounded off his comments with a suggestion to law enforcement agents to look for men and women of integrity to cite as good examples to young people they're trying to retrieve from criminal disobedience. Mr. Bernard Ehusani was born into a Catholic family where early attendance of catechism lessons put in him the fear and worship of God.
Well, I was raised up in a Catholic environment, strict Catholic environment, in which we were introduced to the role that God plays in an individual's life. God's role fundamental, the sole determinant of who one grows up eventually to become. We were taught how to fear God, learn His commandments, and strictly, with prayer and with faith, believe that God to help you through by obeying those rules and regulations, being a guide, principal guide in one's life. I believed it, I embraced it, I caught it as I should, and I realized in no time, even as before I became much older, even in primary school, through catechism and through the models of behavior that I saw in those who were my own teachers, that it is actually good for one to align his life with the law of God and with the fear of God.
It is the case of a man who followed the path pointed out by his parents. There was no alternative to the conviction he had about trusting that he had been properly guided. He recalls the basic lessons at the session with the catechist.
At catechism, I learned quite a number of lessons, including the importance of God in a man's life. That God is Alpha and Omega, is everything, and that there's no way anyone can live a meaningful, worthwhile life on earth here without thinking paramountly how to please that God. And that is what the catechism lessons taught us. It made us to put us in a frame of mind to put God as number one in everybody's life. This I embraced without question. My parents were there to answer my questions. I really didn't have much questions to ask because it was very easy for me to see, even from their own examples, how it is good to grow in the fear of God.
These words aggregated into divine laws for young Bernard. He let them mold him into a God-fearing young man. He admits, though, that he lowered his guard at a point and got pulled into vice, which he had to beat a hasty retreat from when his background returned to haunt his uncustomary behavior.
I must confess, actually, that at a point, especially in my early secondary school days, it would appear as if peer group influence affected me negatively. But for the mercy of God, it could have been possible that I would have grown up to become somebody else. Because at that stage, naturally, temptation to join group, came in, to the point that at a stage in my life, specifically in Form 2, I would have taken to cigarette smoking, perhaps as a habit. But as God will have it, the very, very day I got introduced to smoking of cigarette, later in the evening, it was that very day God sent somebody to me that educated me on the risks I was going to take. And as God will have it again, it didn't take me time to decode and to discover this person loved me and would not want to see me inculcate any bad behavior. And as God will have it too, that very day was my only first and last time of ever tasting what is called cigarette.
Mr. Ihusani was about to stray, but admits he was restrained by circumstance not unconnected to conscience imposed on him by catechism lessons. Without that, he would have damned the consequences and continued the vice. So now that God remains on his side, are there instances when his early religious upbringing has had to kick in to preserve his integrity?
I've been so favored by the Almighty actually, because while I was still growing, still in the secondary school, two things actually happened. One was in my Form 2, 1971, it happened that my principal traveled for a year, and Reverend Father Joseph Sunday Ajomo stood in for him just that 1 year. Within that 1 year, I saw an image of a man that was more than a man. In fact, I saw him as an angel in human form, because he was so full of God before me as a person, the way he conducted everything that I knew about him. I mean, at that stage, I was convinced that, of course, the lessons on how to fear God and to allow God to take control of one's life is real, because I saw it in him, being embodied by him. And this had very big impact on me, because it was a big challenge. Here is somebody who you can see, body, soul, and spirit in front of you, not only preaching, but doing what he is preaching. You can equally be like him. Whether you end up being a reverend father or not, here is a human being whose typical lifestyle is a model for you to follow. That was one. On the other hand too, God equally sent somebody to me who preached the gospel to me and made me know that there's a way somebody can actually surrender his life to Christ and allow Christ to take control of his life, so that without even any physical human being monitoring you, there is the Spirit of God that keeps following you and teaching you which way to go, so that you don't wave off either to the left or to the right, but follow strictly the teachings of the Word of God.
Mr. Ihusani presents his understanding of integrity.
Integrity, in my thinking, is simply making up one's mind, having a mindset on what is good and what is not good, what is right and what is wrong, and making a choice between the two, making the right choice, to follow after what is ethical. Jesus taught that you do unto others what you want them to do unto you. And that is a beautiful guide on anybody who is thinking of integrity. whatever you know will not be pleasing to you as a person, don't do it to others, whether they know or not. So making up a person's mind to follow after, and this is where the fear of God comes in. If you have the fear of God in your heart, and you are ready to follow His word, it's going to be difficult for you not to end up embracing the value of integrity, living an upright life, living a life that is concerned much more about pleasing the Heavenly Father. And since you don't see Him physically, the Bible says you cannot prove that you love the Father you don't see if you don't love your fellow human being. So integrity means you have that love towards your fellow human being in such a way that you are mindful of whatever you are doing as it affects others.
It doesn't matter to Mr. Ihusani whether his chosen path is reckoned with or not. To him, integrity rewards itself.
It would have been interesting if God had made it possible for human beings to be tested for integrity via a chemistry analysis. Well, I believe that integrity is a trait and also something that may be exhibited in a fake manner. The true one stands tall all the time. It doesn't change like a chameleon. I am therefore not surprised that Mr. Bernard Ihusani, as my classmate and our being children of the same ancestral father, has continued to be what he is. He doesn't claim to be what he is not, just as he calls what is black, black, and not white.
Wow, thank you for this opportunity to talk about my dad, Mr. Bernard Ihusani, my mentor, my father, a person who I will consistently look up to as a role model. I'll start with my years growing up. My dad, two things I would always remember about my dad, which he still has consistently lived his life with, is integrity and honesty. My dad is one person who consistently stands for the truth, regardless of whose ox is God. My dad, growing up, taught me never to be deceptive, never to lie, and to consistently pursue righteousness.
You don't work up a crowd in the journey to obey the laws of divinity. When the chips are down, you're actually pursuing your obligations in a pact between you and the Creator of things. Stage performer and film producer Mrs. Josephine Abraham is honest about events in her life, almost to the point of brashness. Hers is humor that rewinds a harsh life at some point, but which down memory lane evokes the saying that no condition is permanent. She might look very radiant now, but it has not always been easy.
Those days when there were times at some point in my life as a girl, and all I could afford was bend down clothes, and not even many. I think I remember very well that I had like two, one black, one white, and like 3 different colors of shirts. And so sometimes I would alternate the different color shirt for the whites, and maybe even wear the white skirt the very next day again, but with a different color shirt, so you don't notice. But I have this glow from the inside of me that covers up everything, so you don't even notice that I'm wearing bend down clothes. And I was so satisfied, to be honest. I was so satisfied with who I was, with the person inside of me. I know that I'm not those clothes. That I'm not them. The clothes are just meant to cover my physical nakedness in the passing phase of my life. Yeah, it was just going to be a passing phase, and I knew it.
Mirth comes easily to Mrs. Abraham, as if her face can't do without laughter. She got really frank when she recalled the wonderful upbringing by her grandmother.
Yes, I had the privilege of being brought up by a grandmother. She was so loving and so caring. The things I remember about her every day: she was bold, she was brave, she could never tell a lie, she was always herself, and she was very proud of being herself. She brought me up that way.
Mrs. Abraham says her early life, though sharing church going with her siblings, wasn't one she really saw as religious. She, however, says her grandmother hammered virtues into her. At a time, she wondered how she could have missed the point that the grandma was actually pulling it all out of the Bible, so to speak.
There were things she told me as a child, that when I grew up and I started to read the Bible, well, let me just, not just when I grew up, when I fell in love with God, I fell in love with God after God showed me His love in spite of me. And He showed me His love, so I fell in love with Him as well. And I started to study God's word in the Bible. I saw a lot of the things that she was saying to me in the Bible. Those wisdom nuggets in the book of Proverbs. I was shocked because I thought, whoa, she never used to read because she was not educated enough for her to read. So how did she know those things she was saying to me? She was actually quoting from the very heart of God. And that tells me that God planned my life from the beginning, and He put His word in the hearts of my grandmom and put them in her mouth to say to me in order to mold me from childhood into who I'm eventually going to become in life.
She says she didn't know a lot about God, but anytime she tended towards misbehavior, she practically cringed when someone dropped the name of God.
Growing up, at some point, even though I went to church all the time, but it's not really like I was very close to God. I just used to go to church as in I was born into a house where people went to church. Okay, so but I didn't know God for myself. Okay, but even though I didn't know God for myself, I knew that God was somewhere, and the only impression of God I had was someone who's very angry up there and just waiting for me to make a mistake so that He can hit me. That's just the kind of thing. So I was ever so scared about this God. Going close to Him was not something I really wanted to do because He looked like He was scary, but I was afraid to do the wrong things because I thought that God would hit me if I did the wrong things.
Mrs. Abraham says that knowing God as a child is good, but that the real thing happens when, later in life, an actual encounter with Jesus Christ takes the relationship to an entirely different level. She says that at a point in her life, she experienced just that, when in a dream she saw people falling into a dreaded pit, which she herself was rescued from. Does she now find obeying the laws of God too difficult?
Jesus Christ says something. He said that His yoke is easy and His burden is light. I found it to be so real because the moment that you're surrendered unto Him and you trust Him, right, and you let Him lead you, you let Him lead you by His word, you find it easy. Sometimes it can be really tough, as in your flesh wants to do the wrong thing, but then of course you have God on the side and you don't want to miss Him. Oh no, He means everything to you. You really don't want to miss Him. So you know that honestly God has given me enough power. He's giving me enough support for me to be able to go through this, and I can't afford to compromise. I can't. There are things you just can't do, especially with this relationship with God where both of you interact all the time. It becomes like your nature. You almost take on this nature of godliness. Yeah, you take on this nature of God such that some things are so alien to you. It may be natural with everyone else, but to you it just stands out one kind. It's just like, no. There's this no that comes from inside of you, the exact way that God will react to it. Yeah, because you have Him inside you. Yeah.
Her faith was tested somewhere down the line.
When I left home, it was because I found Jesus and I found love, so much love in Him, and I wanted to shout it everywhere. I wanted to talk about my experience. Oh my God, He took me from the pits. He saved me, and I wanted to tell everyone else that He can save you too. And the only way I knew how to do that was in a song. So I was looking for a recording company who could take me on. I carried my demo tapes everywhere around Lagos. I went from one recording company to the other. Everywhere I went, they said, "Oh, lovely voice. Lovely. This voice can go somewhere, you know. We can work with this voice. But you have to remove the Jesus elements, because here we're not doing Jesus. It's just, we are not talking about Jesus here. So if you could just remove Jesus, we will sign you on right away." But then I don't have a song. Without him, I don't have a song. If I don't have a life without him, so how am I going to do without him? So what am I going to be talking about if I can't talk about him and his love and his mercy? If I can't talk about it, then what am I singing? I don't have a song. I don't have a life. So it wasn't possible. That went on for a very long time. I couldn't find a recording company until eventually I came in contact with a company that does inspirational music, and they were very happy with what I got. And then I was recorded for the first time.
Her second experience of temptation happened when a man wanted her to move over to his place as she looked for where to lay her head sometime in her life. Instead of doing that, she moved into a humble one room, which was a far cry from anything comfortable. But she preferred that to living in sin with a man in a lush apartment. She has a recommendation for those who are in need of spiritual help.
I have passed through some of those things, so it's easy for me to speak to someone who may find herself in that kind of dilemma. Here was I just moved into Lagos looking for a job and sleeping in somebody's parlor on a two-seater chair that my legs would even be hanging out, somehow, and I always had to wait until everyone had gone to bed before I could sleep, because it was their sitting room. And if they had visitors to 12 midnight, I'm just going to hang outside until they finish. But they were nice. So now, at some point I had two options. One option was to move in with a very rich Christian brother who had offered me a place, and then I wouldn't really suffer in his house, in a very huge duplex where he lived. There's something about falling into sin. Falling into sin and getting up and moving on is different from living inside sin. I knew I was going to be living in sin inside of that house, and I would lose my peace. I would lose my peace with God. I would lose focus. I knew that without God I won't be able to achieve anything in life. So if I do it this way and I have temporary comfort, what becomes of me? I didn't want to miss God. So the only other option I had was someone offering me a room where I was going to sleep on the bare floor, because there was nothing inside of that room. The windows didn't have any net in it, and it looked really horrible, but I had my peace. I had to move into that little room. At least I had a space alone, where I could really worship God alone, unlike where I was sleeping on the chair, and also unlike living in sin.
Mrs. Abraham sums it up with her understanding of integrity.
If I tell you that I love people of integrity, then I'm just really saying that. Let me use myself as an example, right? I do not lie. If I tell you anything, that's what it is. I'm not afraid to tell you when I'm wrong, that I'm sorry I'm wrong. I'm also, I do not cheat, right? Anything I tell you, that's what it is. If you check anywhere, that's what it is. Yeah, and for me, integrity is actually being true. Being true to yourself and not faking who you are. You're just real. You are yourself. Under no circumstance, you would not lie. You would not cheat. Yeah? For things as small as having an appointment, to maybe I tell you I'm coming to see you or something, if I say so to you, my heart follows it. My heart follows everything I say. So once I've told you that I'm coming to see you, if for any reason it's really impossible for me to get to where you are, I'm going to call you ahead of time. I'm not going to wait until it's past and I'm giving excuses. No, I will call you ahead of time and tell you my difficulty. I relate it to you that I want to come to you, but I have this difficulty that's making it look like I may not be able to get to you at this time. Is there a way we can reschedule? So, but the moment you tell me you're coming and you don't come, you tell me you do something and you don't do it, I give you money to do something for me and you're telling stories, you're telling stories and all of that. I just think you're somebody who does not have integrity. And it's really hard for me as a person to relate with you if you don't have these attributes. It's going to be very hard for you to convince me that you're somebody of integrity when you do not even believe your own words. You don't take yourself serious, so I should take you serious? You tell me you do something and you don't do it, and then you always tell stories, you always have explanations as to, and then you tell me you're going to come to an event and you don't come. We have a time frame, we say we're meeting at 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock you're not there, and there's no information from you. And then later on you start to tell stories about why you could not, unless if it's something that happens once in a while and it's just you just could not communicate. But for me, integrity means if you say, let your yes be yes and let your no be no. If you say anything, mean it. And if for any reason you still can't do it, you're not ashamed or afraid to say, oh no, I was unable to do it. Like we had an appointment today, right? We were supposed to meet for 11:30. At some point, I'm calling Shola and I'm saying to Shola, please, it's almost 11:30 and I expect that you'll be here, but I'm just entering the bathroom. I'm reporting myself. I'm just entering the bathroom. In case you come and you call my phone and I'm not answering, no, it's because I'm in the bathroom. Just give me a few minutes and I'll be out and call you in. If you don't treat me that way, I think you're somebody who does not have integrity. If you promise anything to me and you say, by this time and this time tomorrow, expect me to do this for you. If you're unable to do it, don't start escaping my calls. Don't do that. Let me know that I'm sorry I wanted to do this, but for this reason and for that reason, I'm unable to. So I'm sorry about this. I'll make it up to you. Whether you apologize or not, it really doesn't matter. But for you to keep me expectant, and then you've gone away, not even caring about how, the expectations I have of you would impact me, I don't think you're somebody of integrity.
Some persons who know Mrs. Abraham have their comments about this woman of faith.
One thing I would always say for free about Madam Josephine Anumbo is that you can never go wrong with her words of advice. She is spirit-filled and she has the capacity to be a shoulder for you to lean on at any given time. I love her so much, and most of the times I have the opportunity to discuss with her, even outside of the NNPC. For me, it's a refreshing time because I kind of draw strength from her, especially with the fact that I have some similitude with family life with her. She's a mother of 2 boys. I also have boys as well, and somehow I draw inspiration from her, from how she has been able to manage to raise godly children as well.
Wanting to serve the people, we decided to give her the opportunity to be of service to humanity, especially the youth, because we wanted to empower the youth, train them in various skills and empower them thereafter. So we left the entire process for her, especially the training, to identifying the various skills that these people could really fit in. And she did that just perfectly well.
You interact with the notable songwriter and movie producer, and she sees you off with laughter. Her pool of it does seem to be rich and deep. Former Director General of the Nigerian Bureau of Public Enterprises, BPE, Dr. Julius Bala, left that office some years ago. But one thing that hasn't left his mind is the strength of character, fueled by reliance on God's guidance and protection, which he fell back on as he resisted all attempts to make him submit to favoritism during his tenure at the BPE. He was lucky to have started life on a strong religious note, which taught him the importance of separating good from bad. He recounts his early exposure to faith teachings.
If you are born in a Christian family, normally you would also become a Christian. And this is what happened to me and most of my siblings. It was just part of home, part of family life, to have a Christian life. So I was brought up in a Catholic family. We went to a Catholic school. We went to church every Sunday with our mother. And so Christian life became second nature.
Young Julius's father was a police officer who hardly had time for family life. Someone had to see that the children got a good dose of God at the right time.
But our mother played a major role in ensuring that we were good Catholics. She would take us to church every Sunday. I would ensure that we attended the catechism, which was very important for bringing up Catholics.
The religious influence in childhood even went beyond the dates with the Catholic catechist.
But there was a Protestant church not far from our house in Jos. And they used to organize what was called in those times Sunday schools. They were American missionaries, Baptist missionaries. And they used to entice us with crayons, with books with which we can color. And all of those things impacted on my life. Not only on how to live a proper life, but also the discipline to do things as expected of me as a young man, as a growing young man at that time.
Honest to a fault, Dr. Bala simply refused to admit that his rise in life was as a result of spectacular hard work. If you made the grades after university, life was practically ready for you. Even a car loan was not a big deal. He says of his reputation that mom and dad, through their infusion of God and correct behavior in him, made a great impact. Incidentally, that attitude by which transparent societies are built became the last straw for Dr. Bala at the BPE.
I left BPE maybe because of this reputation that I have.
You mean you could have lasted longer?
Longer.
Okay.
The man who appointed me called me and said, Julius, as far as your integrity is concerned, I have no problem. As far as your ability to do this job is concerned, I have no problem. But you have too many enemies. So you have to leave this job. But I thought that the first two was the most important, that I could do the job and I have certain integrity. But I don't want to go into certain unnecessary details.
Well, detailed or not, a man who did the right thing at the duty post had to leave the job because of the sad swing of society. Dr. Bala was every inch as plain as he could be about events at the BPE. Somehow he just couldn't leave out a role model whom he says taught him how to insist on that which is proper.
So Hamza Zayed was constantly my role model when I was implementing privatization. Indeed, I was seeing myself as Hamza Zayed. I didn't realize that first, I am not Hamza Zayed. Two, Hamza Zayed operated in a completely different environment. Of course, at the end, he had to leave BPE also because of his image and the way he handled things. But I continued to work as if I was Hamza Zayed. But I was dealing with completely different people, completely different environments. And so I had to leave because I didn't fit that environment. And now when I look back, I'm glad I left BPE at the time I did, because I would have gotten into trouble with the powers that be.
He drops a payoff.
The good religious upbringing is very, from my own experience, is very critical to living a proper life as a child and as an adult.
Nigerian legal icon Damian Dodo says this of Dr. Julius Bala.
Julius Bala will err on the side of doing what is right. He has done this in his official life, when he was in government. He's done this in his private life, and I say that his life is a case study worthy of emulation, not only by this generation, but by younger Nigerians who are looking up to people who think that doing right should not be an occasional venture, but doing right should be real life.
And from Jos, Dr. Bala also receives a heartwarming endorsement from Solomon Homlong.
Dr. Bala, that I have come to know over the past 40 years, is an embodiment of integrity. He is somebody who lives both in private and in public according to his principles. The reason why, if there's one word to describe Dr. Bala, is to say that he is somebody who is content with what life throws at him because he abides by his principles. Our Nigerian society is in dire need of such personalities. And it is my utmost desire that one day, sooner or later, the Nigerian society will benefit from the principles and the vision he embodies.
In his modest Abuja office, a man who believes in God and himself continues to thank the Almighty, as well as his parents, for his picking up early spiritual strength. A certain Dr. Hamza Zayed should also take credit for being part of the tools utilized by God to prosecute the path in life of this former BPE man of conscience.